We live in an era of inescapable, high-quality indie games, and I think that's something we take for granted. We have been blessed in recent times with games like Balatro and Animal Well, while games like Stardew Valley and Undertale remain omnipresent despite being almost a decade old. I think it's incredible that we have such an immense and rich selection of these games, but there's still one problem. There's too many! And not in the everyone's making the same game type of way, in the there's so many games I genuinely want to play that I can't play them all kind of way. I suppose that's a good problem to have, but the overwhelming number of great indie games has ultimately led to some older titles fading into the background. One of these games that I think has been overlooked over the years is the Escapists. While it may not get the same attention as some of the games of its time, the Escapist offers a unique blend of simulation and strategy that's still incredibly fun to this day, even if it doesn't fit in with the recent trends. So let's dive into the game, and see why the game is still worth playing in 2025, but also discuss what might be holding it back from staying in the spotlight. I open the game, breeze through the very simple tutorial, and enter the first prison of the game, Center Perks. One goal is made abundantly clear from the moment you start playing this game: escape. In the case of this prison, it's pretty easy, because basically any way that you can think of getting out will work because it's a low security prison. This prison isn't a tutorial by name, we just played the actual one, but it's definitely the introduction to the main loop of the game. As a prisoner, we're placed into a super specific daily routine that we follow every single day. Breakfast. We're technically supposed to sit down and eat, but eating is for losers, so we just show up and leave, using the time to do things like stealing from other prisoners' desks and preparing for our escape instead. Being caught outside of where you're supposed to be increases your heat stat though, which is kind of like the police anger stat, so we have to be careful about not getting spotted by the guards. Job time. The game lets you do a job to make extra cash, which you can use to buy stuff from other prisoners. They can also be pretty helpful to escape, giving you some contraband items that would otherwise be pretty hard to find. For this prison, I stole a guard's outfit for my job, which is needed to avoid suspicion at night when we try to escape. Exercise time. Like any good prisoner, you can continue your string of crimes by committing violence in this game. Whether you're fighting other inmates for some extra cash after taking a request, or trying to kill cops to take their key or outfit, the gym will help you get strong enough to win those encounters. Shower time. Trying to escape is tiring. Sitting in the shower replenishes your stamina. It's actually pretty convenient. Free time. It's as simple as it sounds. We just use it to do whatever we need. And at the end of the day, we get roll call. All the prisoners come together, and the cops announce whose cell they're going to search. If you're searched and you have any contraband in your cell, you get sent to solitary confinement and lose all of your progress. Missing roll call also raises your heat stat to its maximum, causing a lockdown, and making all the cops attack you. You don't want to miss a roll call, you don't want to get caught with contraband in your cell. Each prison has different schedules, but all of them have those same events. Let's escape the prison now. For this prison, I opted for a relatively basic escape. I broke a wall in my cell using forks I stole from the cafeteria, then covered it up with a poster. I got my intelligence high enough in the library to craft some wire cutters, stole a guard outfit for my job, and went out at night to cut through the fence and escape. But got caught because I forgot to put a bed dummy in my cell. I'm a little conflicted with how the Escapist expects people to figure out how to play the game. On the one hand, the game can definitely feel like a trial and error experience. Going into Center Perks, the only thing they've taught you is the controls of the game, like breaking walls and crafting, but you don't actually know about all the little tiny rules that can ruin your run, including the one that I forgot about that wasted almost 16 minutes of my time. The game does, thankfully, offer advice in the form of paying for tips at the payphone, but getting a grasp of how to actually escape still proves pretty challenging. On the other hand though, this challenge is kind of like the entire point. This game is as much a simulator as it is a puzzle game. You experience the entire day of a prisoner, figuring things out as you go along. I just think it would make no sense if we already knew how to escape. If I had to take a position on this game sort of leaving you in the dark, so to speak, I would say I'm kind of neutral about it. I think it makes the game more fun for people like me, who like figuring shit out, but it probably alienated a certain portion of the audience and made it harder to get into, which might be why it's not received that well today. There's not exactly 100 YouTubers making Let's Play videos on it anymore, so you probably have to figure it out through a wiki, which most people don't want to do. All that aside, I fixed my mistake and escaped Center Perks. For a two-dimensional game, the escape attempt is about as intense as it can get. Hours of preparation all lead up to one night, and all those hours can very easily be taken away, which just makes actually succeeding all the more exhilarating. Now let's move on to the next prison, which is Stalag Flucht. This prison introduces us to a few mechanics that really up the difficulty, most notably the contraband detector, having a cellmate, and the electric fence around the perimeter of the prison. This prison is still considered an easy prison, and for pretty good reason, but the changes definitely make it distinctly harder than the first, which makes it more fun. One thing that really hit me when I replayed this game is just how much character it had. Aside from having a really fitting pixel art style that matches the themes of the prison really well, it also has a bunch of unnecessary but welcome details, like prisoner dialogue. The game did eventually get a sequel, which is definitely good, but it doesn't come close to having the same level of charm in my opinion. Charm aside, we have to find a way into this building here, which houses the generator that we can use to turn off the electric fence. But the door's locked, oh no! Let's beat the shit out of a cop to steal the key from him. Stealing a key gets you immediately caught though for some reason, so I rely on my apparently really strong memory of old Jacksepticeye videos to make a fake key. We use the fake key to turn off the generator, cut the fence, and escape in a similar fashion to the last prison. Shankston State Pen is the next prison, and it's the first one with any degree of significant difficulty, but it's also one that doesn't have any fun gimmicks to discuss, so I decided to sort of cheese it. Apparently if you beat up enough guards, the warden gets really scared and just kinda lets you out, so I befriended a bunch of inmates by giving them some gifts and then beat up a bunch of guards to escape. The next prison, the Jungle Compound, is a weird one. It has all the regular hallmarks of an easily escapable prison, but somewhere, lost in translation, they made it so you have to steal ID papers from a building outside the prison, forge your signature, and present the ID to a guard to get out. Given the circumstances, you pretty much have to do it all in one night, which proved incredibly difficult for me. On my first attempt, I didn't have enough stamina to break into the room with the ID papers. On the second, I forgot to get a guard outfit and got spotted by the jeep that roams the perimeter. On the third, I didn't bring enough tools to dig out, and my shovel wasn't durable enough to break all the dirt I needed. On the fourth, I forgot to increase my intelligence stat high enough to forge my signatures on the ID papers. On the fifth fucking try, the stars aligned and I made it out. Hi. Ho, ho, ho. Let me out. Yes! Let's fucking go! Woo! Remember what I said about this game feeling like a trial and error experience? This made me feel that to an extent that teetered on the edge of not being all that fun. Regardless, I escaped. The next prison is San Pancho, and its level design is actually really sick. We had already seen the use of a bunch of contraband detectors and high levels of security, so it would have been boring if the challenge of this prison was one of avoiding detection. This prison is not a challenge of avoiding detection. It's a challenge of resourcefulness. There's practically no contraband detectors. The guards rarely even come into the prison, and there's not a lot of actual difficulty navigating at night. The challenge of this prison is tied to the fact that you have to dig a massive tunnel to get out. Trip mines surround the sort of prison inside of a prison design, and you have to be underground to see where they are. With this design, saving every timber you found, getting as much metal as you could to make shovels, and making sure to inspect every fallen body to make sure that you got every single trowel became the real challenge of the prison. This was a really well-needed pace change, and it made the process of escaping unique enough that the game didn't feel repetitive or monotonous. Speaking of the escape, I forgot to select game capture in OBS, so I didn't record escaping this prison. Here's someone else escaping in the same fashion though. After escaping San Pancho, the game is done going easy on you. HMP Iron Gate, the last prison, has everything it can to stop you. Cameras in every cell? Check. Contraband detectors for every room? Check. Guards that instantly kill you? Check. A giant lake around the prison inspired by Alcatraz requiring you to make a raft to escape? Yep, it's got that too. This prison is a tough one, but it's also a really fun one, which is why I'm not going to go super hard into the details on how to escape it. You should go try the game and see how fun it is for yourself. After finishing my preparations, I use my method of escaping the walls of the prison and present my raft to the lake and escape, solidifying my completion of the game's mainline prisons. There's one thing I've kind of been avoiding about this whole time that I think I should probably talk about at least a little bit. The game has a sequel. It came out 7 years ago, 3 years after the release of the first game, so why am I not making a video on that instead? On principle, I think it's a little weird to do a video about the sequel of the game before talking about the original, especially when the original was so good, but additionally, the second game just doesn't hit the same spots for me. When I return to the Escapists, I only ever play the sequel when I want to play multiplayer, for a multitude of reasons, and I think that many people would find that sentiment relatable. The second game has fallen off in a similar fashion to the first too, but for what I would argue are different reasons, so if you want me to go through the entirety of that game too, say so down in the comments. Now we've finished the 6 mainline prisons of the game. Look at us go! Is that all there is to the game though? Of course not. What I'm about to talk about is one of the reasons I'm a little confused that both the Escapists 1 and 2 have fallen off in recent years. The games have a level editor. Like any prison you can think of can be made in these games. There's potential for tons of really sick prisons to be made, and guess what? They've already been done. If you're someone who really likes tough challenges with tons of roadblocks and barriers to success, there's a user-made prison for you. If you're someone who kind of just wants to escape prisons like Center Perks again, there's plenty to go around. With this feature, there's just so much replayability for the game, it's incredible. On top of that, there's also a few free DLC maps with some extra features and escape methods, so if you're scared of what the community has made, there's at least 10 or so more hours of content from the actual game creator. I've now addressed pretty much everything I wanted to talk about regarding my experience with the game, so let's wrap this video up. The Escapists isn't the greatest game of all time. I think I've spoken quite enough about the faults of the game up until this point, and if you played the game too, you would experience them. But the game and its sequel are still incredibly fun, and definitely don't deserve their smaller player bases when compared to the other games of the mid-2010s era of indie games. Some of the lack of longevity of this game probably comes from the lack of story and interactable characters, some of it's probably because it's hard for beginners to get into, but either way, the game is still great, regardless of its community's size. This video isn't a plea for you to try a new game that I happen to like. It's a reminder that we should remember and love what we've already played in the past. The Escapists and other games like it will eventually fade into obscurity, so it's up to us to preserve their memory, and hopefully I've done my part by making this video. Thanks for watching.